Hi, I'm Jessica Woll, family law attorney and author of the book, The Wise Divorce. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Wise Divorce. Last time we talked about when to stay and when to go when a marriage is in trouble. Basically, I asked you to make a pro and con list and see where that landed in terms of pro staying married, con leaving the marriage. So the next thing I want to dive into is when you should file for divorce. Next step, right? Next step, should we file for divorce? So when do I think you should file for divorce? When it's imminent that is the right course of action? Well, let's say your spouse cuts you off economically. You're financially dependent on your spouse, who's the primary breadwinner in the family. If you've been cut off financially, that's a form of emotional abuse, and you should seek help and file for divorce, because a court in that instance will right that ship and will make your spouse open up marital funds. After all, when you're in a marital partnership, you share your spouse's income, and that is something that a court will address and correct. Another time when I think you should absolutely file for divorce is when your spouse has threatened to take the children. The court will stop that as well, absolutely. So if you have insecurities that your spouse might up and run with those kids, you know that you have recourse by going to court. Addiction. We talked about addiction. When do you stay, when do you go when it comes to a spouse that has alcohol dependency or drug dependency? Well, I guess the question is whether or not they're actually getting help for that problem. So if they're actively pursuing help for an addiction, then you might want to give it a timeline. So again, you can only control your spouse's actions by giving some suggestions to try to make things better, but you can't control that person, right? The only person that you can control is yourself. So knowing that, you want to put timelines in place. A lot of times people will come to me and say, oh my gosh, my daughter's having a child in May, and let's say it's February, or there's a wedding coming up this summer and it's maybe January. So there's big life events that are going to happen, and you might want to think twice about whether you should file, knowing that a big joyous event is on the horizon. So what do you do about that? Well, I think you need to assess how bad your situation is. Is it abusive, the marriage you're in? Because if it's real abusive, you're being physically abused, you're being economically abused, you're dealing with major addiction, then you're going to want to say, okay, I know that we have this wedding coming up in June, but I have to protect me. So you're not going to wait. Now, things are not so bad at home and there's a major life event occurring, you might want to give yourself the time to enjoy that family event as, a married couple, as a family still, and then know that you're going to get divorced after that. However, a word of caution. When you have an event that you're centering your behavior around, you want to make sure that you do set that timeline for yourself. Like if the marriage, for instance, is occurring in June, you maybe want to take action July, August, okay? There's always going to be another life event. So you got to be careful where you draw that line and take a hard look at what's going to be in your best interests, because that's really what you're going to focus on. You have to take care of you in these instances. And I know the stakes are high and it's scary and we don't always know where to turn, which is why I think it's important to make the pro and con list, like I talked about in my last episode, and also to really consider the situation that you're in and whether it's dire or not. I mean, if there's, you're on the fence about divorce and it's not so bad, then again, look at marriage counseling. Ask your spouse to meet you halfway and come up with some compromises on how you're going to make your marriage better. If your spouse isn't willing to meet you halfway and isn't committed to saving the marriage, you know the answer. I hope today's been helpful on The Wise Divorce, and I'll see you soon.